Inside America's Boardrooms, the informational show for board members and corporate secretaries. Brought to you with Knowledge Partners, Diligent, PwC, Center for Audit Quality, the Conference Board, and Corporate Board Member. Along with content contributors Equilar, Meridian Compensation Partners, Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati, Donnelly Financial Solutions, and the Society for Corporate Governance.
Welcome to this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. I'm TK Kerstetter, the CEO of Boardroom Resources and the co-founder and editor-at-large of Corporate Board Member magazine. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the show. We're here today in Washington, D.C. at the Society for Corporate Governance, where they're holding one of their annual conferences. And we have a room full of GCs and corporate secretaries who obviously work with our audience, the board of directors, to make them more effective. It's always nice to be here because we have access to some great guests. And it's my pleasure this morning to welcome Colleen Birdnow Brown, who's a board member with TrueBlue, Inc. and Spark Networks. Welcome, Colleen.
Thank you.
So we're going to talk about forming a board innovation and technology committee. And on this show, we've taken a lot of time to talk about forming committees outside of the big three. And the purpose of forming these committees is that the board recognizes that there is a significant piece of their business or a significant strategy that's very important for them to be focused on. So we've seen, amazingly, some 700 different types of board committees that have been formed. Now, some of them are similar committees with different names, but it tells you the creativity that has existed. So before we get started, you chair the TrueBlue's Board Innovation and Technology Committee. But before we get started, I think it's only right that we explain to our audience a little bit about what TrueBlue Inc. does.
Sure.
In the marketplace.
TrueBlue obviously owns a lot of brands. We are clearly the leader in providing workforce solutions. And the workforce solutions can be anywhere from day labor all the way up to recruiting and managed HR sources. So the gamut, and we are global.
On to our topic. So you chair the TrueBlue's Innovation Technology Committee. So can you share with our audience why it was created, what its charge is, and examples maybe, without revealing any confidential information, examples of the issues that this committee takes on?
Well, okay. The first being, why it was created. I think in general, there's so much put into a board agenda these days, it's really hard to put the focus where you might want it because there's so many other housekeeping things you need to do. So this committee was started because of the realization we needed to allow focus on the importance of technology and innovation in the company without glossing it over or shortening it inside the operating reports during an annual meeting, a regular meeting. So that was why it was formed. How we focus now pretty simply on cybersecurity, on innovation, and on technology. Those are our three charges. Doesn't mean we are alone in that. Obviously, audit has part of the risk as it goes to cyber. Innovation certainly comes up through the operating units, right? So we overlap a lot of different committees, but what it does do is cause us to focus on those three key areas.
When you talk about innovation and technology, it's not like there's one specific department or division in a company that has to worry about that stuff. So every area of the company is going to be affected by innovation and technology. So one of the questions that I think would be a logical question for somebody that's considering this to ask is, how do you communicate with all the different departments or divisions within the company to sort of get the job done, the oversight of that?
Yeah, and it is a little cumbersome until you get the groove. And I would agree that it took me a little bit to figure out how to treat this committee equally as I treat chairing an audit committee or chairing compensation or even NomGov. But it's the same thing. It's all strategy and it's all oversight. So depending on what the issue is, oftentimes we're dealing with the presidents of the divisions or we're dealing with the head of technology in the company, and they come in and we're focusing on innovation, whether or not they're being innovative, but if they are being innovative, what are they innovating on, and how are we measuring that as a company, and how are we prioritizing and identifying the risk that goes with that innovation, and how do we incorporate it and or support it from the board level so that it doesn't get lost because of hitting the bottom line, which is often the trade-off, right? Do you invest or swap out technology so you can innovate, because some technology is written in certain languages that isn't as flexible, for example. So, our job is to figure out, ask those questions. And I think, one of the unique things is to also be a committee that understands the answers. It's one thing to be curious and ask questions, but if you don't understand what they're telling you, and you're able to say, yeah, that is not how I've seen this done, you can ask those questions back and have some real dialogue between you and the operator. So it's difficult because, as a former CEO, I want to jump in there and answer some of these questions or get defensive in a board meeting, and I have to let them do it. Because my only job is to draw it all out as the committee to get all of this up, onto the surface so we can talk about interoperability, scalability, all the issues that go with how are we going to support this as a company? Is it truly innovative, or is it just somebody's pet project?
When you do get back to the board, how do you, there's so much stuff, I'm sure you have minutes that go in, but how do you sort of reintroduce it back to the whole board?
It's a great question, because in our case, pretty much everybody comes into my committee and audits it just for the fun of it, because we're talking about so many interesting things. So we welcome anybody who wants to sit in. But other than that, if there is a preponderance of those board members not being in the meeting, then I go back through and review for them. Here are the three big things we're working on, and here's what we're being told, and here's what we're following, and we'll get back to you next meeting at these measurabilities, or how this adoption of whatever it is going. So it's no different than an audit committee, really. It's no different than any other committee.
So you found that because it's so encompassing, because it includes technology, which requires a level of understanding, like you said, of making sure you know what somebody's talking about. Have any tips on the type of skill set that's helpful, that you found is really helpful on your committee?
Yeah, I don't think just bringing in a head of technology is the solution. I do think CEOs or individuals whose life has been in the technical sector. I may be in media, but I've spent my life dealing with building TV stations and satellites and cable, and that's been my world, always technology based. So I'm pretty comfortable. Started a lot of startup technology companies, internet companies, served on Career Builders Board, on Classified Ventures Board, those kind of things. So I'm very comfortable in the space. Could I go and write programming anymore? No. But once upon a time I could. Yeah. So those of us with that kind of background who have worked in big organizations where you've implemented heavy amounts of technology, we have a pretty good idea, as well as the work and the trade-offs of innovating on the bottom line. So I like CEOs with technology backgrounds or individuals. We have one individual who previously chaired this committee, and he was head of McKinsey's technology advisory practice. So, certainly up to speed and certainly asking the questions that need to be asked.
Well, I think we're going to see, again, more boards creatively looking at the challenges within their company, and you're absolutely right. Work is being done in committees, not necessarily in the whole board venue, just because of agendas. So. Makes perfect sense.
Well, and one thing I'd like to add is it isn't just, the most important thing about that committee, I thought it was technology, it's innovation. And that was a big eye-opener for me, because that's hard when you're not in control of it, right? So asking, what are you innovating lately? How is this different? Why don't we just buy it off the shelf? Why are we writing it ourselves when you can buy it off the shelf? So the innovation of how we do our business, I think, is we're at that critical crossroads. If you're not looking at innovation at a board level and really pulling it up, they're probably not innovating.
Great point. And Colleen, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, again, I think this is going to be a topic that is relevant to more and more companies as we go down the pikes.
Well, thank you. Good luck.
And that will conclude this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back again next week when we take another look at a critical topic that'll help you be a better board member or committee member. So we'll see you then.
Join us again next week for Inside America's Boardrooms. Brought to you with Knowledge Partners, Diligent, PwC, Center for Audit Quality, the Conference Board, and Corporate Board Member. Along with content contributors Equilar, Meridian Compensation Partners, Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati, Donnelly Financial Solutions, and the Society for Corporate Governance.